Welcome to the Dreamer's Den. Come in, find a comfortable seat. Let the noise of the outside world just fade away.
Today, we're tackling something, well, fundamentally exhausting, I think. But it's so accepted, isn't it?
What's that?
That shared, just crushing feeling, having a mind that's constantly full of lists, full of tomorrow and full of yesterday.
Yes, the modern condition, right? That feeling of just
Yeah,
constant mental clutter, obligations everywhere.
exactly.
We look through your sources, and they really dig into this idea, this sense that mental exhaustion is, well, unavoidable. But they challenge that.
Challenge it how?
Well, they pose a really sharp, simple question for this deep dive. Does a full calendar mean a full life?
Oof, that hits hard. Because, let's be honest, we're probably all a bit guilty of that thinking. The sources argue we've become so incredibly full, packed with tasks, anxieties, just the sheer noise of our schedule.
That we've left absolutely no room to just be. That's the core idea.
Yeah. So our mission today is to kind of explore how we might start reclaiming that internal space, finding that often forgotten value of stillness.
Okay, let's dive right into the social side of this. One of the most specific, maybe even painful observations in the material is how we use our overwhelm.
How we use it.
Yeah, it says, we wear our busyness like a badge of honor. I mean, I know I've replied to texts way too late at night.
Oh, definitely.
Well, almost to prove, maybe to them, maybe just to myself, that I'm still on, still relevant,
You've hit exactly the key point the sources make. It's become a performance.
A performance.
Yeah. Telling someone, oh, I'm so busy, it's culturally kind of morphed into saying, I am so important. We treat constant activity, it doesn't matter if it's useful activity, as proof of our value, our productivity.
Right. But, okay, how does the source draw the line between, actual productive work that creates real value and this busyness, which it calls pretty sharply, just noise?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, to the listener, work often just feels like work. That's the strategic insight here. When we're frantically running, jumping from one thing to the next, often just reacting, right? Notifications, emails, that fear of missing out.
FOMO, yeah.
Exactly. Those actions start to blur, they become noise, they lack strategic value because they aren't coming from a place of, like, clarity or real intention.
So we're confusing movement with progress.
Precisely. We're confusing motion with progress.
Yeah.
The sources basically ask, if you're constantly moving, but you don't really know why or where you're going, are you actually achieving anything meaningful? Or are you just, generating internal friction, stress?
Wow, that sounds like a description of anxiety itself, doesn't it?
It really does.
And if we dig into the emotional cost of this nonstop performance, the source says something pretty profound. That we've fundamentally become afraid of the quiet.
Afraid of stillness.
Yeah, afraid of stillness because we dread what we might hear or what deeper stuff we might face if all that noise finally stops.
It's that uncomfortable thing, isn't it? Like sitting in a waiting room in total silence. If we stop, we might have to actually face those nagging anxieties, those deeper truths, or maybe the gap between who we really are and what we spend our days doing.
So it's easier to just keep busy.
Often profoundly easier, yeah. Keep the waves crashing, keep the surface turbulent, rather than look at what's really down there beneath it all. And to help us really visualize this fear and the psychological impact of all that constant motion, the source introduces a really powerful metaphor, quite elegant, actually.
Okay.
It invites us to think of the mind as a lake.
Okay, a lake. I can picture that. And this analogy, I guess it details those two states we were just talking about, busy versus still.
Exactly. Let's break down the first state, the mind of busy. The source describes this as the lake during a storm.
Right. I can immediately picture that. Choppy water, maybe dark clouds.
Precisely. Think about the conditions. The wind is howling, the waves are high, it's loud. The surface is just completely churned up by the turbulence.
You can't see anything below the surface.
Critically, yes. It becomes impossible to see through that surface down into the depths.
And if you're, say, in a boat on that stormy lake, you're just constantly fighting the waves, right? Reacting, trying to stay afloat. No time or clarity to look deeper than the spray hitting your face.
Exactly right. And the source connects this visual directly to self-knowledge. When the mind is that stormy lake, you cannot see the bottom.
Okay.
And if you can't see the bottom, if all that turbulence obscures your inner landscape, well, then you can't see your true self. You're just defined by the surface chaos, by that constant battle.
Okay, so if the storm hides our true self, then the only way out, according to the source, must be, well, the opposite, right? Stillness.
Yes.
And the description of the calm lake is quite beautiful, actually. The storm passes, the wind calms down, the waves become still, and the water becomes clear. It says like glass.
That's the moment of equilibrium, isn't it? When the whole system just settles, you can see everything, every pebble, every fish, every detail, right down to the deepest point.
Sounds peaceful.
It is. But here's where the kind of philosophical paradox comes in. People often fear stillness. They assume it means emptiness, a void. Like they're supposed to empty their mind, which sounds impossible or boring.
Yeah, I get that. To the average person, completely buried in their schedule, stillness does feel empty. Or maybe even unproductive. How does the source convince us that this supposed void is actually full of everything?
It reframes it. Stillness isn't about the absence of thought altogether. It's about the absence of turbulent thought, the noise.
Ah, okay.
When the mind is still, you stop generating all that distracting surface static, and then you can finally perceive what's underneath. The full spectrum of your own existence, maybe? Your intuition, your deeper desires, your real priorities.
Yeah.
All that stuff was there all along.
Just hidden by the waves.
Exactly. Hidden by the waves. So the source insists that stillness is where we find peace, not in some mystical void, but in the radical clarity of seeing the underlying reality of yourself.
That clarity. It leads us straight to what feels like the core philosophical statement. It's a real challenge, I think, to our modern definition of worth.
What's that?
The source just states it plainly. You are not a machine. You are not your list of tasks. And crucially, your value isn't measured by how much you do.
It's a radical rethinking of value, isn't it? Our whole economic structure, our cultural narrative, it screams that we are what we produce, what we achieve.
Right.
But the source pushes back hard on that. It says true value resides simply in being, just existing, regardless of output.
Okay, but hang on. That's a very real, immediate challenge for someone listening, isn't it? If my value isn't tied to my tasks, the emails I answer, the projects I finish, the money I earn, how do I justify my salary? Or even my existence in a system that demands constant performance? We need those outputs, right?
We do need output, of course. But the source insists that real, clear productivity should ideally stem from a calm, still place, not from frantic reaction.
Okay.
The argument is if your internal definition of value is tied only to those external metrics, success, promotions, whatever, then you're perpetually dependent on things you can't fully control. The market, your boss's mood, a competitor's actions.
Right. Makes sense.
But in the quiet, in the stillness, you remember who you are beneath all that. An inherent internal value. Something that can't be taken away by a bad quarter or a missed deadline.
So stillness is kind of the vehicle for recognizing an inherent worth, something you don't have to earn or prove.
That seems to be the idea.
And it gives us this clear list of what we are not in that moment of self-discovery, which feels like this act of, mental subtraction.
Yeah, stripping things away.
Right. You are not the job. You are not the emails. You are not the stress.
It's that essential process, isn't it? Peeling away all those external labels we mistakenly grab onto as our identity. We're trained, aren't we? Someone asks, who are you? And we give a job title or a list of accomplishments. The source is saying, those are things you do. They aren't the thing you are.
Okay. So once all those external things are stripped away, once the lake is finally clear and the turbulence settles, who is left down there? Beneath the surface.
Well, the sources identify something very simple, almost fundamental. The person who just wants to breathe.
Breathe.
Yeah, the person who wants to feel at peace. That basic foundational human need for calm. Maybe that is the most truthful, essential marker of self, unburdened by performance anxiety or what society expects.
Wow. That shift in perspective is, it's powerful. But we need the bridge, right? The bridge back to reality, which is why I really like that the source doesn't just leave us sort of floating philosophically.
That's practical.
It offers a really practical, almost insultingly simple invitation, a direct, actionable challenge for you, the listener.
And the simplicity is absolutely the point. If we claim we don't have time for stillness, well, the source gives us a time frame that, frankly, even the busiest person can probably afford.
It details the exact steps. Just for 1 minute. Try it.
1 minute.
Put down your phone. Turn away from the screen, close your eyes, and just breathe. Or just sit there. That's it. 60 seconds.
The philosophy behind this tiny action is actually pretty profound, I think. You don't need to do anything during that minute. or solve anything.
No big goals.
No. You don't need to achieve enlightenment or perfectly empty your mind. This deliberate pause, that is the anchor. That is your peace.
It's about interrupting that reactive cycle we talked about. Because the second you put the phone down, that frantic part of the brain just screams, right, but what about that email? What about that thing I forgot?
Yes. But the strength of this approach, the source suggests, is that the action of stopping is the peace itself.
The stopping is the peace.
Exactly. The simple act of choosing to pause. That's your declaration. That you're in control of your internal state, at least for this moment, regardless of the external chaos. It's an intentional choice to just step outside the performance of busyness, just for a minute.
And for anyone listening whose anxiety is already spiking, just thinking about that 1 minute of, forced idleness, the source offers a really necessary reassurance. The world and all those lists, they will still be there in 1 minute.
Nothing will fall apart.
Right. You're not actually losing productivity. You're potentially gaining clarity.
But the outcome the source promises
is
significant. After that minute, it says, you will be different. You will have returned to yourself.
How so? Different how?
It's like an emotional and cognitive reset button, even a tiny one. You return to the world, to the emails, to the tasks, but maybe not as just a frantic responder to demands, maybe more as a centered, intentional person. Someone who's briefly reconnected with that still water beneath the surface storm.
So, to kind of wrap up the core idea from this deep dive, the immense power seems to lie in just taking a minute, 60 seconds, to be kind to yourself, to return to the quiet. It's that difference, isn't it, between being tossed around violently by the storm and having the clarity to actually see clearly right down to the bottom of your own lake.
And we really have to recognize that central distinction the sources make. Frantic activity is not the same thing as self-actualized being. It just isn't.
Right.
When we mistake noise for value, we sacrifice the very clarity that could lead us to our true self-identity. Stillness isn't some luxury item you add to a busy schedule if you have time.
No.
It is, according to this material, the core operating condition for a peaceful, self-aware life.
Okay. And if that holds true, if stillness really is where we find peace, clarity, and our genuine value,
then the final question has to be, what external force, or maybe more powerfully, what internal pressure are we allowing to keep our lake in that permanent destructive state of storm?
That's the thought we want to leave you with. Consider what it would truly take, maybe starting with just that 1 minute, to prioritize being over the exhausting and often pretty hollow performance of doing. Go be kind to yourself.